It's got me going. All right. Hi, friends. I'm Tiffany. Welcome to my quilting life. It's 8 p.m. here in Arizona right now, and I'm going live because I'm trying to prep for tomorrow. So, today's video, or this evening, or this nighttime's video, is prepping your quilt for the long arm, if you have one, and or for long arming services. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing here today while I load a quilt on the long arm, so you can see the process of loading it, which you've seen plenty of times on my channel, but hey, you know, anyway, I gotta go over it again and again because sooner or later it helps other people when they see it in multiple videos. So, who do we got here?
Kim and Shelly.
Hi, Kim. Hi, Shelly. And whoever else is here. Hello. So, you need to load the long arm and or send your quilt in.
Okay, now we got Kathleen, Tony, Jim, Vicky, and Darlene.
Hi, Kathleen, Tony, Jim, Vicky, and Darlene.
And Judy.
And Judy.
And Katrina.
And Katrina.
And another Judy.
Hi, Judy. Hi, everybody joining. So, I'll just give it a second for more people to join. This is my long arm. We're in my garage.
Hi, Zella.
Hi, Zella. We're in my garage. This is my long arm. I quilt on a King Quilter 2 Elite Special Edition machine. It is an 18-inch machine sitting right there. I don't have it on right now because there's no need for it to be on at this very moment. And it is on a 12-foot frame, which you can mostly see in this setting because you guys are looking at me from a different angle. And don't mind all my storage behind. I mean, I am in a garage and I gotta store stuff, so.
Hi, Cheryl.
Anyways.
Hi, Wendy.
Who?
Cheryl and Wendy.
Hi, Cheryl and Wendy. So, loading the long arm or sending your quilt out. What do you need to know? What do you need to do? Well, I'll tell you what I, as long armor, need from you as the quilt top maker, and what I do on my own as well.
Hi, Deborah. Hi, Bernie.
Hi, Deborah. Hi, Bernie. So, first of all, if you're loading yourself, you need a long arm. If you're sending it to a long armor, there's lots of things, and I'll try to get to everything all at the same time while I do this.
Hi, Jessica.
First, you need your quilt top, your quilt back, and if you're sending a special batting and or you request a batting or blah, blah, blah. I guess we'll go with long arming services first because a lot of people use long arming services.
Hi, Bergie.
When it comes to sending in your quilt, I personally, as someone who long arms, prefer if you send your backing and your quilt top in the same package with a note maybe that says what kind of whatever you want. Obviously, we talk about that normally. Anybody that sends me quilts, we usually talk about it. Some people, most people, prefer to send their own batting to me, but a lot of other long arming services, they supply a certain kind of batting, like Quilter's Dream or Quilter's Dream Wool or some kind of cotton blend or poly blend or whatever. They all supply something and you can suggest that. And usually if you go to web pages, they have those options you can click on. Make sure you click those options because some people offer more than one kind of batting. I, on the other hand,
extra though, so.
yeah, they have batting charges in all that. It all equals out, you know. I, on the other hand, use what I have and or what my clients suggest. Now, some clients, my start to finish quilts, their batting charge comes in their start to finish price. So if a start to finish quilter comes to me and says, I want 100% cotton, blah, 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 Quilter's Dream brand, I will go out and purchase that, and it goes with the charge of me making their start to finish quilt. Then I have other clients that say, well, whatever you have on hand. Okay, so I use whatever I have on hand, and I make sure with them, do you want super lofty batting? Do you want a little flatter? Do you want your quilt to drape more? Do you want all sorts of different blah, blah, blah? I ask those questions. This client, this quilt, is getting a 6-ounce loft because she wants the show quilt, awesome, fluffy, puffy quilting that I do. She loves that. She says it's amazing, so that's what she wants. That's what she's going to get. So you will see me load 6-ounce loft polyester batting with this when I start loading it. There's one big thing long armers and or long arming yourself you need to do. You need to press everything. You need to press it, so press it, and then fold it up nicely and send it off. Because there are a lot of long armers that don't, like if you send to Missouri Star, they don't press the quilt first. They just load it. If you have any specific direction that you want your fabric to face, so say you're sending in a stripe and you want it up and down and not side to side, but you want your quilt top up and down, you need to take and put a little mark that this is your top corner, pin a little thing to it with a safety pin or something, saying this is my top corner. I want my quilt to face this way with the quilt when quilted. Make sure you put little notes on things because we won't know if you send it to us and it's all by itself. And I have gotten quilts sent to me and they had a stripe for the back and I was like, well, which way do they want this stripe to go? I don't know. So I have to call and ask, and it's just, you know, and then it takes a long time to get it loaded and blah, 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 because I have to find out for a fact. So make sure that you tell them the direction you want things to face and so on and so forth. That's another thing.
Better be safe than sorry.
Yes, better to be safe or end up with a quilt that you did not like once they were done. Thirdly, you need to make sure that your backing fabric is bigger than your quilt top. So we'll do an example. If your quilt top is 90 by 90 inches, your quilt backing needs to be 98 by 98 inches. Why? Because we need 4 extra inches on top for pinning or clipping or clamping or zipping or anything that the long armor does. We need 4 inches here, 4 inches here on the bottom loading bar, as well as room for, and I'm going to have to bring this close so you can see.
Hi, Joyce.
A lot of long armors have clamps. These are my clamps. All sorts of long arms have different clamps. Some are long, some have a long stick, some are a flat thing. My old one had these little round knob things. It was kind of stupid, but we need room to clamp the side. And you're saying, well, the clamp's only an inch right there. It is, but when it's hooked to the side of the quilt and it's clamped on, the bed of the machine actually will hit this constantly and it'll mess up our quilting. If it is fully out of the way by 4 inches on each side, we don't take the chance of hitting these clamps, especially if we're using a ruler base for people who are getting custom quilting. My ruler base hits these things so much, and it'll cause a divot or something, and it hits it and it messes up my quilting, and I don't like it. I have to pick it out, and then sometimes I just move them out of the way and quilt without it. Most long arming services, they have some kind of clamp. They need to clamp to the side. Make sure that your quilt back is bigger by 4 inches all the way around. So if your quilt is 90 by 100, make sure it's 94 or 98 by 108. You know what I mean? You need to make sure that it's well enough big for it to work out perfect for us and our clamps and our leaders. We need the room, you know. So the second reason why we want it big is because also we test our tension. Not all machines and not all machines people load the same thread. Like I use the same kind of thread, but every once in a while I change my thread. There are loads of long armors out there that'll use whatever thread they have, whatever thread the person brings them, whatever brand, all sorts of different brands, all the different gauge brand, you know, the gauges of the thread and so on and so forth. They use everything. So they're switching constantly. In that switch, we have to test the tension. Where else do we test the tension but on your quilt? We actually will test it on one of the sides, that a little extra 4 inches on each side. I scribble my tension checking on the sides to make sure that it's good. So it's always usually in the top corner. Every once in a while, throughout the length of the quilt as I'm quilting, every once in a while I'll get a bobbin that's not the same as the previous bobbin. So I'll side check the tension. But just know that we have to have somewhere to test it too. There are some quilters though, and I've seen it in videos because I watch videos too, that test it on a separate thing that they'll load further out. But if your quilt is as big as our frame, so if you're sending me a 120-inch quilt, I actually won't have that extra room to load something else to test my tension. Your quilt, or the backing and the batting fabric, or the batting and backing fabric, are going to be what I tested on, because I won't have the room to add something else to test my tension. So then there's other companies that use the same thread. Always, always, always. I choose glide thread. I prefer glide thread. My machine runs great on it, and I don't really have many issues with thread breakage and problems like that. But I am also a free motion quilter. I'm not computerized. So the computerized, and I know this because I've watched it, they need to make sure that their tension is 100% accurate, because while that computer's moving and they're sitting there reading a book while it's moving along, or in big companies like Missouri Star, and they've got two machines going at the same time, so they have to keep going back and forth. They can't constantly make sure that every time the thread breaks, because the tension gets off and then the thread will break or something will happen. There'll be a bobbin tangle. You guys know, you've watched my videos. I have those problems too. So you need to make sure that you're sending a quote back that is bigger than, so that we can test things and make sure everything is accurate and have room for wiggles and whatever happens. Okay? Another thing, make sure that your top, your quilt top, which would be this right here, and it's just folded up for now, is pressed flat. Make sure your borders are on correctly and not wavy. If you are constantly holding up and showing your quilt top to everybody that lives on your block because you're so excited you finally did something that you've never done before and you're excited to show it off, just make sure before you send it to the Longarmer that you restarch and press those fabrics very, very flat, or else you're going to be sending them a wavy border. What's going to happen with wavy borders? We're going to have to figure it out ourselves by folding in new seams and or working it in, and it might mess up that look or change the size of things. So make sure that your quilt tops are also super duper pressed, nice and flat, everything. If you lay it on a hardwood floor or a tile floor, there's no bumps or wiggles. It just lays flat on the floor. You want that before you send it in. And obviously it'll have fold marks once it's shipped in the mail and or before you get it to your frame, because we're going to fold it up and put it out of the way. But if it's pressed first, there should be no wrinkles in this because it's folded up nicely and sent off to wherever it's going and or before I get it to the long arm. So make sure that you press, because not all long armors press. I press the quilts that are sent to me, but that's just because I have a huge board. But if they come already pressed and already flat and no wrinkles, that makes me a happier woman.
Hi, Quilting Beauty and Books.
So
How you
there's
doing?
that. Another thing I want to add to sending to a long armor is backing fabrics pieced and backing fabrics not pieced. Having a 108 by 108 back, absolutely the easiest thing. Or a solid piece of fabric with no seams, loads the best. Absolutely the easiest way to go. Why? Because there's no seams. Now say you pieced your back with your backing fabric directionally or whatever, how have you, with the straight seam going like this, up and down, okay? Make sure that you press that seam open. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when we load it on the long arm, that open seam will lay flat as I'm rolling it here, as opposed to if you pressed it all to one side, I'm going to have a little bowing happening to the side that the seam is pressed as I'm loading it and rolling it on this bar right here. It's what's going to happen is that folded to one side seam is going to start shifting all the fabric on that side to this side and creating a big, huge like lip right here, and it's going to have a bump. Same as when I'm quilting along and rolling it up onto this bar back here, I'm going to develop a big hump right here because there's more seam in the back than on the top. Does that make any sense? So pressing the seam open is actually a plus when you send it to a long armor or if you're long arming yourself. when you are piecing a back and your fabric is pieced one strip here, one strip here, one strip there to make your 108 or whatever inches, right? And you have a seam going this way, back and forth, side to side, press it open as well. Again, when I start rolling it like this, if there's a seam going along here, if it's pressed to one side, and this has happened to me many times, and I've learned my lesson over the years now because I've been doing this for 4 years. That seam is never going to be straight with this bar. It's going to want to curve. It's going to want to stretch because it is two fabrics put together this way, right? And it's going to start pulling it to one side, and I'm going to have a dip either on my right or on my left. You know what I mean? So just make sure that you're pressing your seam open. Also, stitch that seam with like a 2.1, 2.0 stitch length because it's nice and tight. Nothing's going to fall apart because there's a lot of tension going on here. We have these nice and tight when something is loaded. So make sure that you've stitched it with a really tight stitch length because it just doesn't work for us. Also, I want to add, if you're sending your quilt to a Longarmer, for me personally, I actually like the selvage to be your top and bottom. Does that make sense? So the selvage of your fabric, if it's the top and the bottom of the back of the quilt, I actually prefer that because I'm a pinner, and pinning to the selvage is a perfectly straight line. Makes it easier because if you have a pieced fabric like this and your two pieces came together with that and you didn't trim it and you have like an inch, one is like an inch taller, I don't have a straight line to work with. That means I have to do added work of straightening that quilt back out so that I have a nice straight line. And then on top of it, I technically sew a nice straight line across the top so that I can pin at that line so that none of the edges from fabric, you know how the edges can fray on some fabrics, pull at my pins with the tension being tugged on the long arm. I don't want those pins to yank out and then yank the fabric itself because that can happen, and it can happen often. Then there's people that sew them on anyway because they sew on leaders for the zipper leaders. And then there's also those clamp systems. They are using way more in the front because they're putting it on a clamp system. They're not even using it at there, but the selvage always makes a nice straight line. So just know that the selvage end makes a nice straight line. So yeah. And then lastly, pieced backing, which I'm going to show you because I'm going to load this in front of you. This is a super pieced backing. So we are going to have a two-sided quilt here, and there are so many, many seams. Make sure on a pieced backing, again, that you are sewing with not too tight. You don't want it to be too tight because then you're going to rip your fabric. We don't want too tight. We want a 2.0 to 2.2 stitch length throughout the whole entire pieced back. And the next thing, a stay stitch. Make sure all your edges are completely straight, and then sew a stay stitch all the way around the whole perimeter of your backing. Why? Because that's going to help me and I don't have to do it for you. And it's easier for me to pin. And then when I have my little clamps grabbing the end right here, that stay stitch is going to prevent me from my clamps ripping that fabric, which they have done many times. Let me tell you. So stay stitch, it stops that from happening. So, and your long arm will thank you with all this. It's just a little bit extra work, but you will be thanked by the person who is quilting it for you. If everything is square, stitched properly, you have no rips, check for your applique on your quilt top to be stitched down in every spot. Try not to miss a spot because if they're using computerized system and it's going over applique, it's going to lift that piece of applique and it's going to fold it back, and then we got to rip it out, blah, 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 because you didn't see it. You know, some people don't see it all. I mean, it happens. It happens. But if you double check before you send it off in the mail and or take it to, you know, in person to your long armor, they will thank you if everything is checked over and straight and square and accurate. So I'm going to load a piece back and then the top, and I have marked my back right here. It says top corner. So when I open this up, This is the top corner that is going to go on my right hand side of my frame on the back bar, and it's going to be loaded like this, not like this. I made arrows
Hi,
because
Janice.
this,
Janice says great tips.
yes, this is one big huge disaster of a log cabin on the back. So I wanted to make sure it's going the correct direction because I did add an extra piece of fabric on two sides only, and then no, both sides at the bottom, and then an extra one on the bottom only. That way I had enough fabric. I want to make sure that this lays perfect. And also make sure you note if your long armor is centering it too, because some long armors I've noticed in videos will load a quilt back and load the quilt to one side. I do that too because then it leaves a nice big chunk down the opposite side. You know what I mean? So, what's the question?
Quilting Beauty and Books asks, do you center your backing?
Yes, this one will be centered, but not all backings need to be centered. If there's no specific anything on the back of the quilt and it's just plain fabric, I don't always center it. There are times that I do, but I don't always. I'll put it to one side or the other because then that gives you, when I send your quilt back to you, it gives you a nice big chunk on the opposite side plus your bottom chunk, because I load closest to the top unless I'm centering and center normally, but if I'm not centering it, I do as close to the top as I possibly can to my pinning edge, and then usually towards the left because I work from left to right, so I just put everything towards the left side. That way you get a nice big chunk on the side and on the bottom when I send your quilt back to you. Because some people like to bind their quilts with the leftover backing fabric, which I do too. So, yeah. So now I have this nice and pressed and it's getting wrinkled hanging here on the floor. So I'm going to get this all prepped to pin as fast as I can without having wrinkles. So at any time, feel free to ask questions because now is when I'm pinning and stuff, and Scott can answer any questions.
I already told him. Do you want me to help you? Any
Nope.
pins or anything?
Nope. So this is how this works. I fold my backing over itself like this. I pull it out from the back side around to the front and then over the bar because I'm going to pin at the back. And then my first bar, this is my back. This is for my backing, and then this is for a quilt top, and I never use it. I only put it up here so that I can do this. Pull this down enough, up and around. That's the only,
she's going to center this one now as you guys watch.
yeah, this one is going to get centered with the backing. So you guys are going to see how I have to keep lining everything up perfectly for this one.
It was Quilting Beauty and Books, she asked that.
All
She
right.
also said earlier, great tips, especially about the selvage and the stitch line.
Also, I do have to say, if you're working like me in a garage, or you're sending your quilt to me and they got white fabric and you're worried about me being in a garage, no worries. You can't see the floor, but I lay sheets down all over the floor, tons of sheets, so that your quilts, no, it's fine, so that your quilts are not touching my garage floor and or my anti-fatigue mats, which somehow never get clean. And if I walk out here barefooted, my feet turn black because they can't, we've scrubbed them outside and they don't get clean. So I cover the whole area with sheets. So don't think that your quilts are going to get dirty because they won't. Anyway, now I got to refine my top corner.
Hinty
All right.
Ann says, I need arrows even on the quilt pieces. It's ridiculous how turned around I get.
All right, so I know this is my top corner, so I'm going to find my other top corner right here. And just to let you guys know, my backing is 96 by 101. So I'm going to find my center of my quilt back. Lined up perfectly, find my center, and I am going to put a pin in it because I'm not ever going to see if I finger marked this. So I'm going to get a pin, and I'm going to put the pin right in that center. Right in front of my face, I could see that mark. And I have my marked center for the top. And now I'm going to find the bottom of this whole entire disaster of a pieced back. I'm going to go down to the bottom section now. And I'm going to find the center of my bottom. And I'm going to mark that with a pin. Not a pin marker, but a pin poke you. You can mark it with a marker though if you wanted to. I just put pins in them. It makes it easier.
Has to be the quilting markers though. Don't use
Yeah, don't
permanent
don't
marker.
use a Sharpie. Make sure you're marking it with a regular pin, a erasable pin. All right, so my bottom is marked and my top is marked. So now I'm going to grab my top where it says top, and I'm going to bring it up under here, and I am going to very carefully, making it face down,
Hi Emily. Emily's here. Says hello.
lay this up here, and I'm going to try to make this center pin land somewhere wherever my center is up here. It's somewhere back there, and I'm going to go back there and center it. And I'll put my slippers back on for this, because I'm walking on this stuff that turns my feet black. And I am going to grab my bowl of pins, find my pin here, and go, here's my center. I'm going to grab my cloth leader, and I am going to put that pin right there on the center with my quilt back right at the edge, and I'm going to put my first pin in on my stitch line. That way every single pin lines up. If your pins start to like veer away, you'll notice it when you go to roll the quilt. If you are learning to long arm, so make sure you have, like I said, this is why the selvage works perfect, because you can put them exactly in the same spot at a mark across the selvage. I usually put them right where that selvage turns into regular quilt, fabric. I put them right along that, and it works perfectly, and I never lose my straight line, because if you start veering and your quilt top just gets all funky, it won't load properly. So now I'm going to go ahead and, holding my center, I'm going to straighten this up on here like this, and it's kind of heavy, so it might try to pull. But that is why I'm holding it the whole time. And now I'm just going to pin every thumb length apart. See, I put a lot of work into, especially bigger quilts. Little quilts don't take me that long, but the bigger quilts, they do take a while to load. Especially when I'm like talking through it. When I'm rocking out, they go pretty fast, but obviously YouTube would like make me in lots of trouble if I turned the music on.
Yes, we know that.
If you guys didn't know, I have surround sound coming from underneath my machine. It's amazing out here. I can blast the stereo and rock out, and since I'm in a garage, nobody cares. It's like I'm having a quilt party. All by myself, usually.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's
Party
usually all by
one.
myself. Party one. So, anybody have any questions about the long arming stuff? I know I could tell you big long arming services that have computer options have options of a database. It's like a database type thing with all the little quilty designs that you can choose, and or they have a little note area that you can put quilter's choice. So you can choose and let the quilter choose what design is put onto your quilt for those computerized systems. I, on the other hand, I must tell you in advance, if you want to send me a quilt, it's quilter's choice every time, because you can give me some kind of direction, and I tell you guys this all the time. You can give me some kind of direction, like, oh, I want paisleys quilted, or I want spirals, then that's what you're going to get. But I don't know I don't know everything, and not everything comes to my brain from my brain to the long arm. I definitely like to play around. So most of the people that send me quilts is because they want me to have fun with their quilt.
Janice says, I'm sure long armers get a lot of wonky quilts. Thanks for
Oh,
your skill.
yes. Yes. So I took my tag off, and I'm just going to now pop it out of the way because I have the correct corner where I want it. So I don't need to have it on here anymore. Just going to continue pinning. Yeah, if you make sure that your tops are straight before you send them in, and your backs are straight before you send them in, and everything's stitched correctly, it makes this process go so much faster. Your quilt will get loaded faster. The faster it's loaded, the faster it's quilted, and the faster you get it back. So, just know. Another thing about long arm services is there are some that can do next day service, and then there are others where you have 2 and 3 week waits. like me right now, I will be a 3-week wait. So if you try to send me something in the next week, just know it's not coming back till mid-April, because I'm not only doing these and my full start to finish projects, but I'm also working on
Hi, Rachel.
healing from surgery when that happens. So
Well, Rachel asked, so when would be a good time to send you a quilt?
after April 1st. And then I'll go back to logging and all that stuff where I get everything done.
You can send it now if you want, Rachel. Just know she's not going to get to it till April.
Yeah. Who knows how fast I will heal from my surgery, but personally, we're giving me until April 1st to start working again. And even then, it might be slow at first. So, because I'm a right-handed quilter, I'm a right-handed everything. So, anything left-handed, I can't wrap my brain around it besides cutting fabric. That's the one thing I can do left-handed.
Hi, Donna. Donna says, do you always center the quilt on the center of the leader, no matter what size the quilt is?
Yes, because these leaders don't have markings on them, so I can't say this marking and line it up with this marking and always stay to this side. So I always go with the center, because the center is the only place on this whole entire cloth leader system with a center mark. So I always center it, which is actually kind of good because it allows me to have more room on the sides, especially with big quilts, to move the machine around. So keeping it center, I have room to just keep junk on both sides of the frame. Unless I'm quilting something that's 120 inches. Then I don't have much room on either side.
Hi, Sandra. Vicky says yes, let your hand time to heal.
Yes.
Her daughter had it done and took her a while to heal on the inside.
Yep, I'm going to be taking my sweet time healing. So I'm still pinning right here. I have my stitched line, even though it was a nice, all my pieces that went together were a nice straight piece, with the piecing of this back, I still wanted that stay stitch, not only to seal all these seams on the edge to keep them from opening, but to make sure I had a nice straight line to pin to. And that way, if my fabric does rip at all, because this is heavy, this is a very heavy back because it is pieced. Ouch, that pin just went right through. My first fingers tore up.
Yes, you get Tiff's blood, sweat, and tears in this.
The stay stitch just keeps it from ripping, like I said earlier. I don't want any rippage. And fabric frays, some fabrics are cheaper than others, and we can't control that, Even expensive fabric frays, though, when it comes to pinning it on a long arm. So.
Hi, Mary. Mary says loading the little buddy 5-foot frame is a little different.
Yeah, definitely, because you have to pre-baste it, don't you?
And Rachel wants to know if she would send it to the P.O. box. Should I just have her email you?
Just email me.
Your email's down below.
In the link in the description below is my email. For anybody that ever wants to send quilts in, just email me. And if you're a friend on Messenger, like on Facebook Messenger, then you can message me that way as well. But I don't see messages if you're not my friend, unfortunately. All right, so now to pull the back off the floor. So now the bottom is off the floor, and I'm going to find my center.
She said, will do, thank you.
Yeah.
Mary says no, she doesn't pre-baste. Quilting Beauty and Books says my leaders aren't marked either. I wish they all came marked. It would be so helpful.
Well, I put a mark, a Sharpie mark, and then wrote a C for center. So that I remembered why I put that Sharpie mark there. They should have been marked. I think that King Quilter probably would have got a lot more people interested in it if they would have had marked leaders, because they do sell marked leaders. You can buy aftermarket leaders that have markings on them. They have like a grid on them. Alright, so I pinned that center. Now I'm going to straighten it from side to side. This thing is like so super heavy. I'm going to move my pins out of the way.
What's that thing called that we signed up for, SewingMachinesPlus?
The affiliate program. I'm waiting.
I know, I was just
Oh.
in my head. Okay. I was going to tell Emily about it.
Oh. Alright, so I'm just going to pin right at my line. And my pins are typically a thumb width apart. I'm quiet now. This is why I like music.
I could sing to you, but you wouldn't want that.
No. Please don't sing. You guys hear when I say, please don't sing? Tell Scotty, don't sing. That's something you don't want to hear. It's funny when it's just me and him, but nobody else needs to be.
I was joking. I'm not gonna sing in front of them all.
The word. What is the word I'm looking for?
One needs to go deaf on hearing me.
It's funny. And I use flat head pins, so I have butterfly pins and flower pins. I don't use the flowers as much because they seem to be bendier than my butterfly tips, and I don't like my pins to bend. I wish you guys would be able to see this, but see if I can't hold it up to the camera. The lighting sucks. Look at all these little holes in my finger. I have holes everywhere because it's constantly poking and they won't heal because I don't heal very well. So, how many of you have your own long arm or mid arm, and how many of you send your quilts out to a long armer? I'm kind of curious. And if you're watching this video after the fact, I'd like to know how many long arm themselves and how many send off to a long armer.
Donna has a question.
What?
She says, why does the quilt have to be centered on the frame? What if you have, say, two baby-sized quilts? Could you
I've
lay
done
them
that,
both
yes.
on the frame at the same time?
Yes. I've done two babies. I actually have a video doing two baby quilts at the same exact time.
Hi, Lane. Lane
Yep.
has a long arm.
Does not have to be centered, no. I can put more markings on here if I wanted to, and someday maybe I will, but for my own personal, because I have junk on each side of the frame, I just center it. I've had a problem, and you guys can see right here, this little setup right here where all my tools and stuff are. I have these drawers. With the bigger quilts, I have to move this whole unit out of the way because this side right here that you can't see, it'll get caught on the drawer system as I'm trying to roll, and it just annoys me. So that's why I keep it center. That way everything's over towards this side of the frame and away from that little dresser unit. Although that dresser unit has came in handy being right there, because I just grab my brand new needles and tools that I need to change things, or all that comes from right there.
Quilting Beauty and Books says she has an Innova with a navigator.
That means it's computerized,
Fancy.
right?
I don't know.
I would think a navigation on it would be.
Mary says, my hands are a mess. Got one finger in a needle the first day I had my long arm, then cut the tip of my thumb with my rotary cutter, and burnt myself with the iron.
Today? Today?
All in a couple days' time.
Oh man.
I don't think she did it all today, no.
I did that a couple weeks ago. I burnt myself and I poked myself, and the poke was right, where I poked myself was where I burnt myself. All in the same day.
And Deborah Burton has the same setup you do. She just got it January 5th and she loves it. She's done 6 quilts so far.
Yay.
And June has a mid-arm. Hi, June.
It goes quick once you have one. I will tell you guys this in advance because I haven't finished the application stuff, but I signed up for an affiliate program with the only place that sells this machine, because now 7 of you out there have purchased this machine because of my recommendation, and I've never gotten credit for it. And when I purchased this, I was one of the beginning people to get this machine, and I told them and talked with managers and everything about becoming, part of it, because I do YouTube videos, and that was how it was going to get out there that this machine exists. Well, they never did anything with me then, so now I'm signed up for the affiliate program. I'm in the application process. So as soon as that goes through, I will have my own links for you guys to go and purchase King Quilter and King Quilter related.
Whenever that'll be,
stuff.
We signed up a week or so ago. I'm still waiting.
So I'm hoping that goes through because my videos have helped other people when it came to purchasing this, and I think I deserve a little bit of credit for sending business their way thanks to me.
Anyway, Quilting Beauty and Books says yes. The Navigator thing is the computerized. Hi, Darlene.
That's cool that it's called the Navigator.
Darlene says she has a Handy Quilter Suite 16 mid-arm and a Handy Quilter Forte with Pro Stitcher computerized on 12-foot frame. She's not started using the Forte
both,
yet.
Huh? Wow.
Due to construction issues. Well, she wants to rehome the mid-arm.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I like to sit down and quilt too, but my shoulders and back don't like it. So that's why I chose for stand-up. My legs don't like stand-up either, but I can sit down at any point because I'm not computerized. I can stop when I want and start when I want.
Mary says I don't even count pin pokes as injuries anymore.
Yeah, it's a natural part of being a quilter. That's what it is.
She says, I think I've told you, but I have a baby lock cornet.
All right, so now the next step is to drop it. On both sides and start my rolling process. So I roll it towards me, and while I'm rolling, I also want to make sure that the threads are off of this darn thing because it picks up so many threads. They're not going to all come off. And what I do now is as I'm rolling, I go back and forth across the whole entire thing. And since this is a piece back, I actually have to put a lot more work into it because I have stray threads and I don't want any of these blue threads in white areas. So I'm going to be trimming as I go.
Donna says used to long arm myself, but the quilt shop I used to go to closed until the end of the year.
So as I roll, I straighten it out and flatten things out. And all of my seams are pressed as flat as I could possibly get them. You can see this straight white seam right here. See this white seam? It literally is straight across this bar. Perfectly. So if you're making a piece back, make sure you don't have any bows or anything because that's going to affect how this loads on here. So make sure that you're checking all that as you're piecing your backings and or your quilt tops even. I want all my lines to land in the same spot every time. And all this white area, I'm going to be picking out any dark threads that land here, and then they all just end up on the floor for now.
There's thread everywhere.
I don't want any of the white threads sticking out, or any of the dark threads in the white areas.
So quilting hazard, thread everywhere.
Yes. So much thread. Try to keep the scissors in my pocket without killing myself, huh? Lots of back and forth walking here when I do this. Just gonna set those right there. So you can see how much effort I put into the quilts. All my seams are nice and flat. Everything's staying great. This is perfect. Both my sides right here are rolling up exactly on top of each other. So on both sides, they're exact on top, which is a positive. I want to see that every time. I want it to roll as straight as possible. And this is where I say you need to press your fabrics first, because if it's all wrinkled, it's going to roll up with wrinkles in it. And you don't want a whole entire wrinkled back quilt, not at least your first, before it's washed. You want it to be flat and, you know, very, very beautiful laying. So make sure everything is nice and pressed. I should just get my neck holder thing for scissors. So now I'm going to release that top.
Your neck holder?
Scissors to hook around my neck. My little thing that's in the house that Diane sent me, the lanyard.
Oh. Yes, I know what you mean.
So I'll leave that like that. Everything's still rolling nicely. And see, since it's a pieced back, you can see I even have sagging right here. So I have to tighten that out. I kind of roll back and forth until it's completely gone. So that way I have no sagging here on the end, and even if I did, I'm gonna clip it out. So I'm gonna put my clip right here above my stitch line. And I'm just gonna barely hook it on there. I don't want it too tight because if it starts yanking and there's all these seams, I don't want to start pulling all these seams to where they stand up straight. Like some of these seams, they're gonna get pulled so tight they stand up straight.
I could have.
All right, so I move that out of the way. I'm gonna grab my other side, put my other side's clamps on. Just like that. And you can see this one's pulling just a little too tight.
Now for a big hunk of batting.
Now, super ultra loft batting. It's 6-ounce batting. This needs to go on here now. You guys are gonna see this stuff is so thick. It's like something that you would put in furniture, but it's really not. It's not furniture batting. It's actually quilt batting. Open it up.
Awesome.
So all the way to the end?
Oh, you want me to go all the way?
Yes.
Okay. And then all the way to the end?
Now I'm going to throw the rest of it under the frame because I float my batting and my tops.
Don't do that.
Everything is floated.
Don't do it, you talk.
All right, now for the quilt's top.
Off camera.
All right, the quilt top time. It's good. It's out of the way. Thank you. All right. Now to find the center of my quilt top. Again, you want a nice flat top. Here's my center right here. I don't want it on the floor at all because it is white. I'm going to find my center. I'm centering this with my back, so I'm actually going to put a pin in the center of this. All right. You can put that down. I don't need that side. That's going to hang.
Yeah, I was holding it so it wasn't on the...
It's fine. It's on the sheets.
I know it's on the sheet.
Oh, and that's another, speaking of sheets, another thing that I don't mind loading is sheets. If you send me a sheet to load your back, if you send me a cotton sheet, I'll load it with a cotton sheet. Sheets, as long as they're not cut and the sheet is bigger than your quilt, because it's already got nice sewn edges, they load perfectly. Which I've shown you guys, can you load anything video before? Yes, you can. All right,
Deborah
so
says that shore is beautiful.
I'm going to take my slippers off for this and go barefoot. I'm going to find the center of my quilt right here. I'm also going to lay it down about 1.5 inches. And I don't baste my batting first. I notice a lot of people do. I actually don't baste my batting first. I kind of just load the top and baste it. So I'm going to get this to lay nice and flat for a second. So that I can go and make sure that I have a nice straight line. I also going to make sure I have nice equal distance between both sides. And since this is a fluffy batting and I baste from left to right, I'm going to slightly put the quilt to the right because it's going to shift on the thicker batting. Even if I basted the batting and then put the quilt on, it's still going to shift the quilt because the batting is like that thick. So I want to make sure that everything is already in the position that I want it, kind of thing. So I'm going to come down just a little bit more.
It's so pretty.
Right there, right there, right there. I also made sure that I had no strings attached behind any white area before. That's why I had it folded the way I did. Because I went ahead and got any threads that would stick through or show through the white fabric. I made sure to remove all those. All right, looks like I have a nice straight line, and I do. And now I'm going to shift it just slightly to the left.
Donna says, "Oh my gosh, that is a beautiful quilt. I love the blue colors."
Right there.
They're all loving your quilt, my love.
To the left. And then I'm going to turn my machine on and baste it, and that's all I'm going to do tonight is baste. So I'm not quilting tonight because I got to attach the ruler base and blah, 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 blah.
Soon it'll be Joe's quilt.
So I'm going to tie my thread through. So from the back side, I always stand on the back to do this. I tie my thread into a knot and then pull it through from the front. That way I don't have to rethread it every single time. There are times though that the knot didn't work and the thread breaks on the way through, but I tend to knot it like 2 or 3 times just so that I know for a fact it will take the tension going all the way through. For now, I'm just going to pull from the back side. Since I'm already back here. Turn the machine on.
Judy asks, how much is slightly? 1/2 inch?
Probably like, let's see how far off the center. It's about 1 inch off. It's going to shift that much with this thick batting. If I was just using regular cotton batting, which was the last like 4 quilts I've quilted, then I make sure everything's center. So that way if there is any shifting, it doesn't matter because it wasn't centered to begin with. It wasn't a centered quilt. It didn't need to be centered. So I lined them up this side of it, you know what I mean? But this one is shifted because, like I said, this batting is literally almost 1 inch thick. Like that, it's right before being 1 inch thick. It's 6 ounce loft. It's very, very, very thick batting.
It makes the quilting pop.
Yes. I'm trying to throw threads to you.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the screen.
Alright. Now for that to turn on, we're going to find a bobbin and load it as well. I'm also going to bring, this is really hard to go over this thick batting because I don't have a spoon foot yet. I still have yet to get my spoon foot.
Well, I'm sorry, but the thing is like $50-some, and it's a little piece of plastic, and the one site that was $50 was sold out.
Yep, we're waiting.
All the other sites are more expensive. And that site was your site, the SewingMachinesPlus, right?
Yep, they're sold out.
Yes. Or else you would have one, because I was going to buy it for you.
Alright.
It's just a little tiny piece of plastic.
You long armors out there know what a spoon foot is, so.
I
It's a
didn't.
shore foot. It is a
I
tiny
was
piece of
freaking
plastic,
out
and
when she
Scott
had
does
me look
not.
it out. Oh.
He is not happy with a tiny piece of plastic being $50.
Yes.
All right.
It freaked me out.
I'm
I was still gonna buy it for her, but the place was sold out. So
I'm going to baste now by putting my needle down. If I get the quilt top to stay for a second, I'm just going to hold it right in the corner. Pop my needle down.
Darlene says yes. That foot is expensive for what you get.
Yes. All right, so I'm going to start basting now. And I'm going to change it to a 1/2 inch baste stitch because this is really thick batting, so. And I'm also just going to very slowly, because I don't have channel locks or anything, I'm just going to walk my fingers across this whole entire thing. Very slowly, like. Obviously you can't see, you can just see what it looks like when I'm doing it.
I think he says, Scott, you know, you just got to do it. I was going to buy it for her, but the site was sold out. I would have got it for her. I was freaked out about it, but I still would have bought it for her. I wanted it to be here by the time she got to this quilt, but since they were sold out, there's no chance it's going to ever get here.
Alright, so I'm going to kind of move my pin out of the way, but it's still there because I want to show you guys. I was almost an inch over, and it is pretty much lined up with center now. That's how much it shifted.
Do you want me to bring the camera to you?
You can take the camera off the thing and walk it this way so they can see.
Yes, Darlene, this is Joe's quilt. This is the Not Alone Lonestar.
Not so long.
Not so alone Lonestar. You've watched many a videos with her doing it.
Yep, this is a start to finish quiet quilt.
So, here, did you want me to bring this in?
You can, yeah. You gotta unplug it though.
Yeah. Darlene says, wow, it's gorgeous.
So
or
you
she
guys
says
can see,
congratulations to Joe. Sorry.
Here's my center pin right here. And there's my center line. You can see I had it over here. That's how much it shifted with this thick batting. So if you're ever using super thick polyester batting or 2 layers of batting, make sure that you start it over a little bit more, like 1/2 inch to 1 inch over to one side, because the whole thing is going to shift as you're basting it. Oops, turn it on.
Did you guys watch her do the peach quilt? The one that we put on earlier?
Yep.
It was an upload, it wasn't a live. That had some cool quilting on it. I really liked that one.
And yes, I'm doing this by pushing my fingers into the quilt.
Darlene
like
says,
this.
thanks, Tiff. I appreciate all these tips.
I'm pushing the thing over it and then sliding it.
Oh,
So
Kim
now
and Vicky
I'm-
watched it.
I'm going to straighten this batting out now. And look, I have a nice straight edge here. So all I have to do is come down this. But I am going to tighten my...
She's not completely done with the peach one yet. Once she gets it binded and whatnot, we'll show it to you guys again. Oh, Joyce watched it too.
Okay, so I'm going to carefully baste this side. I baste down the sides as I quilt. So I only baste what's in the throat space. And again, I only have, this is an 18-inch machine, so that means I have 14 to 16 inches of quiltable space. And now that I went fully one way, I'm going to go back the other way again so that it is double tacked down.
Okay, I'm going to come back here again for you guys. Plug you back in.
Because it's so thick of a batting, it created a lip the 1/4 inch way in. So now I'm like stitching 1/8 of an inch in from the edge so that it holds that down and I don't have a big thick area. area. And since it's nice and flat, this will help when I go to bind.
Judy watched the replay. She missed the live.
It wasn't a live.
Yeah, it wasn't a live. It was a
video.
It was an uploaded one. So you didn't miss the live. Don't worry.
All right, so now I'm going to just go down this side. And my machine is a ghost machine when it's on this side of the frame, so I actually have to like hold things in place.
Hi, feisty lady.
Ghostly moves all on its own. I have to keep the needle down when I stop.
Feisty lady found a bunch of fabric at a thrift store. It was fun refolding and putting it away.
Okay. Now that it is tacked down, the only other thing that I do.
Darlene wants to know if you knew this or if you learned it by trial and error about the thick batting.
Trial and error. Because my first super thick batting, I'm going to put you guys back some. You can see the whole thing. My first super thick batting that I ever purchased, we didn't know any better. I bought cotton at first. 100% always. Like the first 10 quilts are 100% cotton. Because I didn't know any better. But it was getting so expensive, Scott was like, we got to find a cheaper way. Well, so we found a polyester batting at Walmart. And it was kind of thick. But my quilt shifted. And I didn't have... This was just like the sit down for emotion quilting. The whole entire thing shifted. I had spray basted it and all in place and everything shifted. So I had originally put it with like 3 inches all the way around. I like had so much room. And then one side and corner, I literally had like 6 inches on that side. And by the time I got down to that bottom corner with the quilting on this polyester, I had no room. When I got my first mid-arm, the first frame and first mid-arm machine, oh my God, every time I loaded the stupid batting, I get to the end and I don't have enough. It was because I wasn't putting it where I was. I was watching too many other videos saying that, oh, you need to come down 2 inches, blah, blah, blah. No. Load it as close to the top as possible unless you're centering something because it's going to shift even on a long arm. So trial and error, all those shifting, I learned how to, especially with polyester batting, how to just put it back. And since I do like a lot of heavy quilting and the polyester makes it pop, I use a lot of polyester batting, but I do use a lot of cotton too, and I don't have no shifting problems with cotton. That just goes really easy. But the polyester is so thick, it pushes everything like wherever it wants to push it. So I always make sure that it's perfect.
But we like the polyester. It looks
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I like the polyester. So do my clients, the ones that get custom quilting.
Well, that's what this is.
My next step, the only other thing that I do is because the roll-up process is
Hold on,
so
yeah.
much easier.
You have a question
What?
before you get too far ahead. Quilting Beauty and Books says, okay, so will the quilt top fall directly in the center of your quilt backing, meaning the same amount of the backing fabric on all 4 sides when you're finished quilting?
It should. On this one, it should. I purposely did that. On this, it should. The only other thing I do, because when I start rolling the quilt up, it's going to have too much bulk if I leave it, is I cut away. I don't do this with cotton, because that I just line up at the top anyway. But with the polyester, I cut away all this extra batting, and because it's not needed. And that's the only other step I take. And I also cut it away when I get to the end after I base the bottom of the quilt. When I get to the bottom, I cut that away too. It'd also be nice if you remove your pins out of the way so you're not cutting those.
Vicky says, Tiff, this is a great video. Thanks.
I'm glad.
And Elaine asks again, do you like the thick batting?
Yes, I love it.
We love the thick batting.
I love the way it looks. I love the way it quilts. The definition that it gives, especially since I am a custom quilter and I do all sorts of custom fancy work. Well, not fancy, but I guess fancy enough to win an award before, 2 awards actually, but that fancy quilting looks so much better on the thick poly. And you know, bigger quilts named quilters, they also use the poly. They use a layer of cotton and a layer of poly. So they put 2 layers of different kinds of batting when you could just put a big thick 6-ounce loft, you know, like Look at how thick this stuff is, guys. I'm seriously gonna hold it to the camera.
And she asked, "Are you gonna?"
It is like an
tomorrow?
inch thick. Look at that.
She for sure wants to watch you do this quilt.
Yes, I'm gonna start tomorrow. But look at how thick this stuff is. Like seriously. And when I quilt it down, it smashes it down. It smashes it down and it gives perfect definition. The quilt is not as heavy as a cotton quilt, but because this is a two-sided quilt, it will be. But the polyester isn't as heavy as using cotton. But it's also a warmer quilt. But this quilt is, that's why she suggested it. It's going to a cold area in the country. So that's why she also wanted the poly, because it's going to be in a cold area of the country. So, all right, let me
Elaine
open
says
this.
never worked with it on mine. We'll be watching.
I float all my tops. I know I tell you guys to iron out all wrinkles, but some people roll. Some long armors roll on the top leader. I don't, but I'm going to end up with wrinkles by shoving it under, and you can see already there's wrinkles, but then it was also kind of damp because I just got done spraying it and starching it. So here's the whole thing fanned out for you guys to see. Obviously I can't get it super flat, but here's the whole thing. And you can see that I have sheets on the floor. Obviously it's beyond the sheets because I don't usually fan the quilts out like this, but I did want you guys to see it in full. So, and this is 90 by 96, the quilt is. So it's not very much longer than it is wider, but the back is 96 by 100. No, yeah, I think. I don't remember what I did. 96 by 102. I don't remember. I said it earlier. Maybe it was 96 by 102. So there it is. That I'm going to start quilting tomorrow. And just so that you guys know, and I'll tell you right now.
Getting a beautiful, amazing satin quilt.
I'm going to retake my slippers off because I don't want to step on the white with my slippers. I'm just going to fan fold it back under here because I always let them float. Oh, and here's a reason for floating. I know some of you think that it's weird having it just hang on the floor like this. Another really good thing about floating a quilt top is, say I have white, and say there is a big chunk of black thread that somehow ended up between the batting and the quilt top. Guess what I can do when it's floating? I can reach my hand under and grab it out. That way I don't have to poke a hole with a needle thing and try to crochet needle pull with the tiny, tiny, tiny crochet hook to try to crochet needle hook it out. When I can just reach my hand and grab it. So there's another reason for floating.
That is a good idea.
So there it is. It's nice and flat. The only other thing I'm going to be doing is, and I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to come up close so you can see. Here's my ruler base. Nice big chunk of plastic, right?
That it is.
I'm going to slide this on here. And yes, I can put it on while the quilt top is loaded. I don't have to put it directly to the side.
Says she'll be watching for notice. She says,
All
I
right.
always float my tops.
I'm going to disconnect the camera and bring you guys over so that you can see why we want extra backing fabric. Here we go. It's going to wiggle for a second because you're fully coming out of the case this time.
Quilting Beauty and Books asks, do you clamp the top down?
No, just the back. All right, so here's the side where the clamps are. You can see the thick batting. I'm going to move it out of the way. There's the clamps. You see how much extra inches I have, right? Now, imagine if I only had it right here. See these clamps? This is what I was talking about. Watch this. It hits those clamps and it messes up my stitches. It hits the clamps and it messes up my stitches. Even with the clamps being as far away over, look, come to the edge of the quilt, you can see it's on my ruler base. Without the ruler base, that doesn't happen because it's far enough away from the machine itself. You can see the actual machine bed itself won't hit it. But this is why we want 4 extra inches so that we have room at the top and room on the side for whatever, you know. So there that is. Oh, yeah, I'm going to turn the camera around now.
Okay.
Anyway, all right, so I'm going to put the camera down because I've showed you guys everything. Little side note, since I am live right now, I could tell you guys, next Friday, so Wednesday I have surgery on the 17th. So my hand will be all wrapped up and I'll probably be all doped up that day. So you will not see me. But Friday, so Thursday, I'm just going to rest all day and, well, take the cat to the vet because the cat has to go to the vet for a checkup.
Yes, he's going to the
But,
doctor too.
Friday, I'm going to be driving to Vegas and meeting up with Becca in Vegas. So all of my Vegas or Nevada or this part of
California or Arizona.
California close to Nevada friends that all want to meet me and Becca from Becca. If you guys want to meet me and Becca, we will be in Vegas. The permanent time that we are not 100% sure, but it's going to be around 2 p.m.-ish. for people to come and meet up with us and hang out with us at the quilting shop. So we're going to have some fun. So yeah, Friday, me and Becca will be getting together and I'm pretty sure we're doing a live stream. I'm not 100% sure. It's most likely going to be on her channel because I have horrible out of town internet service, let me tell you. But maybe I'll record while she's whatever. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, either way, you'll probably see us. And then those of you who are local to the area, don't forget, I'm telling you now, that next Friday around 2 p.m., me and Becca will both be at and you guys can come and meet us for those of you who live close. And it's only going to be for like an hour or so, or we'll see what happens. But either way, because obviously dinner time comes soon and Scotty's on a schedule. So he's going to be there with.
I don't need to eat with you.
So yeah, just so you know, if you live local to Nevada, somewhere in the tri-state area where I live, Becca's going to be on this coast, so we'll be able to go and meet together. And if you're there, you can meet with us. So
Vicky says have fun, and Jaded says that's awesome.
We will be there and we will be having fun. And I will have my hand in whatever crap that the hospital puts my hand in because he already told me. And I'm going to be stinky too. I'm warning you because they said I won't be able to shower. They told me the first 2 days I won't be able to shower.
Put a plastic bag on it.
Yeah, I'll probably put a plastic bag on it and shower.
I used to do it with Triana. Calm down.
I'll stay stinky for you all.
Calm down, man.
Anyway, I'm going to get off of here.
You. There you go.
I'm glad you guys could hang out, and I'm hoping I covered all the bases of long arm quilting and why we need extra and why we want your quilts flat and why we want this and why we want that, because a lot goes into this. It's not just loading a quilt and just scribbling on it. It literally is a lot of effort that goes into it. So I really hope that I answered any questions that you guys may have had before you even got to ask it. I answered it, or at least answered the questions that you did have.
Judy says it'd take her 15 hours to drive.
That's a long time. Anyway, so that's it. This is what I'm going to be quilting tomorrow. So just look for the live. I'm not going to tell you a time because then I will have something go wrong and it'll never happen. So just look for me tomorrow. Sometime I will be starting on this. So other than that, I'm going to get myself off of here. Here's one more view of the nice big quilt. And I'm going to be ruler quilting it. So it's going to be lots of ruler work. For those of you who are curious how all the different rulers work, that's what I'm going to be using, is whatever rulers I feel like I want to use. I have like 10 of them. So they're just all kind of the same thing, just different sizes. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow sometime. Don't forget thumbs up, subscribe, and share with your quilty friends. Bye. Fireworks.
Yes, the neighbors are shooting off fireworks.